A very good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1. For the News Plus team, I am Dharma Ratnayaka. Let's start off tonight's bulletin with a look at your headlines for tonight.
Cardinal expresses dismay over delayed justice for victims of the 2019 April attacks and calls to form a human chain on the 21st of April. Terrorism warned of the dangers posed by the proposed anti-terrorism bill. Sumandiran questions delay in presenting the IMF documents to Parliament. Sri Lanka at 75 is a failed state, says former President Chandrika Bandaranaike. Sri Lanka gets more time to pay back Bangladesh loan. Search continues to locate inmates who fled from the Taldena Prison Rehabilitation Centre in Badulla.
In tonight's top story, the head of Sri Lanka's Catholic Church, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, has invited all the people to form a people's platform to demand for the truth and justice over the 2019 April 21st terror attacks. The Archbishop of Colombo was speaking to reporters in Colombo.
We call upon all our fellow citizens to join us, irrespective of differences of racial, religious and political party affiliation, to make up a human chain which will call upon all our leaders to render justice to the victims of the Easter attacks and to strengthen the hands of freedom and justice in our motherland. To do so, we invite all to gather along the roadside on the Colombo-Negombo main road on both sides peacefully by 8:30 a.m. on 21st April, starting from St. Anthony's Church, Kochikade, and up to St. Sebastian's Church, Katuapitiya in Negombo, along the Colombo-Negombo main road. Kindly observe 2 minutes silence at 8:45 a.m. and remain in the line from 8:30 to 9 o'clock. We expect all to join us as fellow citizens of this our homeland. Those working in the offices and factories are invited to stand for 2 minutes in silence at 8:45 a.m. at their own places of work.
It was noted that according to the Parliamentary Select Committee, there was a political plot in play.
It is 4 years now since the tragic murder of 272 innocent worshippers in churches and visitors in hotels on the fateful Easter Sunday of 2019. Yet it has not been possible for us up to now to identify the perpetrators behind these attacks and to bring those responsible to book. We have never given up our efforts to find the truth behind these attacks, and that we continue to be committed to that cause. We recall vividly the statement made in earlier times by the former Attorney General that behind these attacks, which can be called one of the most cruel and inhuman attacks that happened in recent times, there was a grand conspiracy. It is clear to us and to many others that these attacks were a plot organized in order to gain political power. Even the Parliamentary Select Committee, appointed that time by the Yahapalana government, affirmed so in its report in the Executive Summary, page 3, report published on 23rd October 2019. It is very clearly written that there was a political plot. It is clear that the presidents as well as the politicians who ruled this country since then, as well as the present president and his government and some corrupt state officials, have been and are part of an attempt to hide the truth behind these attacks in order to protect the culprits. What has happened is that, like it was for the Easter Sunday murders, so also there have been in the recent past many political murders, kidnappings, disappearances, as well as setting up of religious and ethnic conflicts and violence in the country, ignoring the principles of the rule of law and justice for the sole purpose of obtaining political power or holding on to power with the help of criminal elements. This country by now possesses a deeply corrupt political power base and some corrupt officials handling legal matters who manipulate the rules to justify such behavior, which would shield and protect political criminals.
His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith also commented on the police press statement claiming that the third DNA test confirmed the death of Sarah Jasmine, the wife of Mohammed Hastoum, who carried out the suicide attack on the Katuapitiya Church on the 21st of April 2019.
Sarah Jasmine DNA.
The DNA test and report on Sarah Jasmine was carried out to obtain the result they wanted. We do not know what really happened. We need a complete independent investigation.
සෑම කරුණක්ම සොයා බලන පරිපූර්ණ විමර්ශනයක් සිදු විය යුතුයි.
පසුගිය අවුරුදු 4 පුරාම ලබාපු ජයග්‍රහණ
There are certain victories that we achieved over the past 4 years. They used strategies to make the people forget and convert the criminals into saints. They also converted the people who fought for justice into criminals. We have defeated those strategies over the past 4 years. We will never forget this until justice is served and the truth is revealed. This is our message to the corrupt politicians and the criminals. They will be prosecuted one day.
ඔවුන් නීතියට කොටු වෙනතුරු අපි මේක අමතක කරන්නේ නැහැ කියන පණිවිඩය.
Parliamentarian M.A. Sumandiran's comments on the IMF agreement being tabled in Parliament. In more news from here at home, Parliamentarian Vasantha Yapa Bandara called on the Mahanayak of the Malwatu chapter to highlight concerns over the anti-terrorism bill.
MP Vasantha Bandara called on the Mahanayaka of the Malwatu chapter, the Most Venerable Tibbatuawe Sri Sumangala Thero, and first obtained blessings and thereafter discussed in length over the dangers posed by the proposed anti-terrorism bill.
This bill takes away the people's right to protest. Judicial powers have been given to the police officers. DIGs have been given the powers to detain a person for a year. The president can also proscribe any organization. We defected from the previous government because proper process was not followed. MPs like us did not have power in the government. The lawyers of the struggle said that all possible measures against the anti-terrorism bill that will be tabled in Parliament next week will be taken.
The anti-terrorism bill will provide all powers to the president to crack down on dissent. It does not end from there. This bill poses a threat to the fundamentals of the law. It can be used to crack down on media freedom and proscribe organizations and institutions that speak against the ruling faction. They can be classified as terrorist organizations. This is against the constitution and violates the fundamental rights. We will move to the Supreme Court against this. As the legal fraternity, we will take all possible measures to stop this.
TNA spokesperson, President's Counsel M.A. Sumandiran says the IMF agreement is yet to be tabled in Parliament. The MP stressed that the sitting Parliament does not represent the mandate of the people.
When
discussions opened with the International Monetary Fund, I questioned the President in Parliament whether the agreement will be revealed to Parliament and the country in a transparent manner. He gave an assurance. However, no such thing has happened. We are in the dark over the conditions in the IMF agreement. After the IMF agreement was signed, the President tabled a document in Parliament. We are yet to be provided with those documents. The government has taken a position that has been tabled in Parliament. They are trying to prove that the Parliament has given the green light for this. The sitting Parliament does not represent a mandate. Therefore, by passing any material through such a Parliament does not represent the final seal by the people. Therefore, a Parliament with no mandate cannot do this. Parliament must be dissolved and a government with a mandate must engage in this. If not, the country will not accept these agreements.
Bangladesh has extended the repayment period of the loan it had given to Sri Lanka by 6 more months as the island nation continues to struggle to fix its debt crisis.
Earlier, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka had sought time from Bangladesh to make the first installment of the $200 million credit by March this year, hoping that it would be able to restructure its debt by then. However, the restructuring was not done. The Bangladesh Bank governor said Sri Lanka is seeking 6 more months and said it would make its first installment by August this year and another installment by September. He made the remarks while speaking to a group of journalists after a meeting with P. Nandalal Veerasinghe, governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, on the sidelines of the 2023 spring meetings of the World Bank Group and the International Monetary Fund in Washington on Friday. He said that the Sri Lankan governor confirmed that it would need no further extension. He added when a loan repayment period is extended, it is not free of cost and that it adds more interest. Notably, Bangladesh was one of the few countries that stepped forward to assist Sri Lanka with funds during the economic crisis.
The 107th birth anniversary of the world's first female Prime Minister, the late Sirimao Bandaranayake, was marked in Colombo today.
Former President Chandrika Bandaranayake Kumaratunga were among those who placed floral tributes to the statue of late Sirimao Bandaranayake, the world's first ever female Prime Minister, at a commemoration event held at the BMICH today. Ministers and MPs were also present.
නැතිනිගේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති මේ වෙනකොට තිබ්බනම් අද රට ඒ ප්‍රතිපත්ති දැනටත් පිළිගත්තොත් එහෙම කොහොමද වෙන්නේ?
ඒවා පිළිගත්තා නම් පළවෙනි වතාවට රට බංකුලොත් වෙන්නේ.
If those policies were accepted, Sri Lanka would never have gone bankrupt. As per those policies, the government cannot loot. Then the country will develop and move forward. Unfortunately, we have gone backwards.
හැදෙනව නෙමෙයි රට ඉස්සරහට යන්න. දැන් ආපස්සට ගිහිල්ලානේ අපි ගව් ගාන.
Former President Chandrika Bandaranayake Kumaratunga has said, despite possessing enviable social indicators at the time of independence in 1948, Sri Lanka at 75 is, quote, a failed state, unquote. Speaking to The Hindu, former President Chandrika Bandaranayake Kumaratunga said 75 years is a long time for a nation to achieve considerable progress. She said that even after 450 years of destruction by colonial rulers at independence, Sri Lanka possessed some of the best socio-economic indicators, and at 75, Sri Lanka is a failed state. She added that widespread corruption at every level had become the gospel of Sri Lankan politics and had seeped down the major pillars of democratic governance, including the judiciary, the police and the public service. She noted independent Sri Lanka failed to weld together the diverse ethnic and religious communities to form a united pluralistic state. She made these remarks during an online event organized by the South Asia Foundation and the Asian College of Journalism, Chennai.
Here are the leaders who have ruled our country, which became bankrupt over 75 years. D.S. Senanayake, the first Prime Minister of Ceylon. Dudley Senanayake served as Prime Minister thrice. Sir John Kotalawala served as Prime Minister for a brief period. S.W.R.D. Bandaranayake served as Prime Minister for one term before being assassinated. W. Dahanayake headed a caretaker government for a short while. Sirimao Bandaranayake served as Prime Minister thrice. J.R. Jayawardena, one-time Prime Minister and two-time President. Ranasinghe Premadasa, one-time Prime Minister and one-time President before being assassinated. D.B. Wijetunga, one-time Prime Minister and one-time President. Chandrika Bandaranayake Kumaratunga, one-time Prime Minister and two-time President. Mahinda Rajapaksa, three-time Prime Minister and two-time President. Maithripala Sirisena, one-time President. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, one-time President, was deposed by public protests. Ranil Wickremesinghe, a five-time Prime Minister and incumbent President. Those are who ruled Sri Lanka that became bankrupt in 75 years.
Ministerial positions have taken center stage at political fora in Sri Lanka.
හිටපු අමාත්‍යවරයාට මේ දෙන්න ඕනි කියලා අමාත්‍යකම මොකක්ද ඒක මම නම් එහෙම කාරණයක් ගැන
I am not aware of that. Rohita Gunawardena is a person who was committed to set up this government and gave leadership to the SLPP to secure a resounding victory from the Kalutara district. Rajitha Senaratne is a politician who provided leadership to defeat the SLPP. If someone is making such a comment, they may have their reasons to do so.
යම්කිසි සාධාරණත්වයක් ඇති. රාජිත හිටපු අමාත්‍යවරයාට අමාත්‍යකමක් දුන්නොත් ඒ සම්බන්ධ We
have informed the President that if positions are given to a list of MPs as a party, we would appreciate it. We believe the President would respect that request and agree to it. Then there will be no issue with respect to power. However, if issues arise, necessary measures can be taken.
ඒ අවශ්‍ය අවස්ථාවේදී අවශ්‍ය පියවර ගන්න පුළුවන්.
කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේදී රාජිත මැතිතුමා ආණ්ඩුවට එනවා නම් සජබෙත්
If Rajitha Senaratne is defecting to the government, the people who voted for the SJB from Kalutara will have to take a decision. If Rajitha Senaratne is fine with it and if the President is fine with it, there is no reason for us to say no. However, there needs to be a politically moral decision that needs to be taken. It would have been better if he joined along with Harin and Manusha. We will not do anything against decisions taken by the President with respect to governance. However, if such a need arise, we will not fear to stand firm against it.
නියත වශයෙන්ම අපි ඒකට එරෙහි වෙනවා.
ඒ වෙලාවේ ගිලන නැවක් නේ තිබුණේ.
ඒ හැබැයි දැන් නැව ගිලෙන්නේ නැති තත්ත්වයට ටිකක් පත් වේගන එනකොට ඔන්න නිකන් මාරු වෙනවා වගේ වැඩක්ද මේ වෙන්න යන්නේ කියන්නේ.
ඒ වෙලාවේ නැව
There was a portrayal of a sinking ship, especially politically. Unfortunately, some from our faction were also fooled by it. Now we can see that the same ship is not sinking. If there was a political uncertainty at that time, it still remains. But if there was a certain political strength, we possess it as well.
ඒ විදිහටම තාමත් තියෙනවා. නෑ සුඛානම හසුරවන කෙනා තුල යම් යම් වෙනස්කමක් ආණ්ඩුව තුල ඇති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. නමුත් සුඛානම කියන්නේ මුළු වාහනේම නෙවෙයිනේ.
නැවකදී විශේෂයෙන් සුඛානම
වැදගත්ම නෑ.
ටයිටැනික් වගේ වේද දන්නේ.
What is the next election Sri Lankans will have to face as local government and provincial council elections are delayed? Professor G.L. Peris from the Freedom People's Alliance stressed that if a presidential election is called before 2024, the constitution will need to be amended with a two-thirds majority.
There is no legal provision to call for a presidential election this year or the next. The president elected by the people can call for a presidential election after 4 years of his tenure. However, a succeeding president who is selected to complete the term of the elected president cannot do so. He must serve and complete the 5 years. If that is to change, the constitution must be amended by a two-thirds majority. If future elections are to take place now, the constitution should be amended. It must be presented to the parliament.
Dehiyattakandiya is home to many farmers who feed the nation, and when they fall ill, the only place they can visit for medication is the Dehiyattakandiya base hospital. Unfortunately, in-house patients and the staff have been deprived of their daily food parcels during holidays and weekends. As a result, patients and staff alike have been severely inconvenienced.
Patients receiving treatment at the Dehiyattakandiya base hospital claim that in-house patients and staff have not been receiving their food parcels during the weekends and government holidays. They say that this situation affected them a lot during the New Year festive season. It is said that this situation has arisen as the food supervisor, management assistant and the development officers attached to the hospital are not being paid on holidays.
The office staff attached to the Dehiyattakandiya base hospital have not been given any of their allowances for the holidays since June of 2022. Their overtime is 60 hours and it has been cut down to 40 hours. However, they have not been paid for those 40 hours and they have stepped away from this duty.
They demand that an immediate solution be given to this issue. The Health Services Director for Ampara, STAP Serasinghe, told News First that the Provincial Health Services Director will be informed of the matter. Eastern Province Health Services Director DGM Costa told News First that the matter would be resolved immediately.
The Government Medical Officers Association said the government has failed to address the medicine shortage.
The government and the health ministry have failed to solve the medicine shortage in the country. By the end of 2022, 90 types of medicine were in short supply. That figure spikes to over 120 this year. In addition, there are no stocks of another 150 medicines in the health system. The hospital system is in short supply of medical supplies as well. Hospitals do not have the necessary lab equipments for tests. The crisis is affecting the Colombo National Hospital all the way to the most remote hospitals. The people are the victims of this crisis.
On to a topic that has been much talked about in recent days. Minister of Agriculture Mahinda Amaravira commented on the program to export monkeys to China.
China has requested in writing regarding this. We have held 3 rounds of discussions as well. We are in the process of preparing a proposal to the cabinet in this regard. Following that, a committee will be established with all concerned officials of the ministries that are involved. This committee will decide whether the Tok macaque monkeys will be exported or not. The first phase will only constitute of 500 or 1000 monkeys, I believe, as per my memory. They have asked for these immediately. Some say that we are doing this without a pre-analysis. This is not the case. Myself, alongside Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Wildlife as well, have been holding discussions for months and collecting reports. I myself have had discussions with environmental activists and shown them the situation. These monkeys destroy 200 million coconuts. The destruction to other food crops are immense as well. Villagers are leaving behind their homes because of this. We asked for proposals from environmental organizations as well. Some proposed to increase forest cover or to separate sections for them as well. Most of their solutions were not practical. We considered them and we took these decisions. We are adhering to international standards.
The Sri Lanka Podujana Govi Perumuna says the decision taken by the government to export monkeys to China is a correct decision.
Around 100,000 monkeys are to be shipped to zoos in China. As the chairman of this movement, who is closely related to the farmers in the Kegol district, I express my happiness about this, especially to the Ministry of Agriculture. Farmers have been rendered helpless by the monkey menace. Monkeys destroy almost all the coconut and fruit cultivation in the Kegol district, and most farmers have abandoned their cultivations. The monkey population in the country has increased and is at the same level of the human population in Kegol. If we do not solve this issue now, we will face a severe food crisis in the future. Monkeys have taken away the balance in the ecosystem. We have lost the crow and ants as well. The ecosystem is fading away. I stress the government must take forward this decision. Many of the crises Sri Lanka is burdened with have come about as a result of poor management. The human-elephant conflict is a key example. The conflict, created through improper development projects, has been heightened through corruption that has plagued any measures taken to arrest the issue. Weaknesses of the political authority and responsible officials have led Sri Lankan citizens and wild elephants alike to pay the ultimate price. Tonight, we bring to your attention the situation in the villages of Maningamua, Kudahalmillava and Ahatwewa in the central Nuwaragampalat Divisional Secretariat in the Anuradhapura district. Wild elephants encroach into these villages and surrounding areas at night in herds.
ජීවිතහානි මේ වෙනකොට 7කට වැඩි සංඛ්‍යාවක් අපෙන් මේ හිටපු අපේ සහෝදරයන් ගොඩක් කාලි මේව කරලා මරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් පාරවල උදේ හවසවත් යන්න බැරි තරම් තත්ත්වයක් අද කුඩාහල්මිල්ල ගමට උදා වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
These farmers who toiled day and night to obtain a sufficient harvest with the hope of selling it for a reasonable price are now left to watch in anguish while wild elephants consume their only means of survival. They continue to hope for a lasting solution to their sorrows. 9 inmates held at the Thaldena Prison Rehabilitation Centre in Badulla have escaped.
Prison spokesperson Chandaneka Nayaka said that 9 inmates engaged in fasting for the month of Ramadan had fled the premises early on Monday morning. However, 2 of them were detained by prison officials later. Prison spokesperson Chandaneka Nayaka said they were detained while hiding inside the Thaldena Prison Rehabilitation Centre premises. The prison spokesperson said that a joint search operation with Sri Lanka Police was launched to locate and detain the missing inmates.
The ferry service between Karaikal port in Pondicherry, India and Kankasanture or KKS is scheduled to commence by mid-May.
The ferry service between Karaikal port in Pondicherry, India and Kankasanture is scheduled to commence soon. According to the ferry service, $50 will be charged per passenger for one-way trip. This 4-hour ferry ride will operate 5 days a week and on Saturdays. The journey will start at Karaikal port in Pondicherry at 8 a.m. and it is planned to reach Kankasanture at 12 noon. The ferry, which starts its journey again at 2 p.m, is scheduled to reach Karaikal port by 6 p.m. It is planned to carry between 120 and 150 people, and one passenger can carry 100 kilograms of goods. Insri Ferry Services Private Limited is licensed for this ferry transport service and its managing director is Niranjan Nandagopan. This ferry service was to commence at the end of this month, but it was delayed due to the lack of permission from the Indian government.
The Sri Lanka Navy intercepted a fishing trawler carrying over 179 kilograms of heroin with a street value of over 3,593 million rupees and apprehended 6 suspects in the southern seas.
In a coordinated operation conducted by the Sri Lanka Navy and Sri Lanka Coast Guard based on information of the State Intelligence Service, a local multi-day fishing trawler carrying about 179 kilograms and 654 grams of heroin was intercepted about 132 nautical miles off the Little Bassers, Hambantota on the 15th of April. Based on information received from a combined intelligence operation led by the Naval Intelligence, the State Intelligence Service and the Police Narcotic Bureau, the Sri Lanka Coast Guard ship Samurdha Raksha was deployed for this special operation off the Little Bassers south of Sri Lanka. In this operation, a local multi-day fishing trawler in the sea area about 132 nautical miles off the Little Bassers was searched on suspicion and a consignment of heroin was recovered from the trawler. The gross street value of the consignment of drugs seized during this operation is believed to be over 3,593 million rupees. This morning, the consignment of narcotic drugs and the suspects were brought to the Galle Harbour where Command of the Navy Vice Admiral Priyantha Pereira was present to inspect them. The suspects held in the operation have been identified as residents of Nakulugamuwa, Kudavalla, Netholpitiya and Trincomalee, who are between the ages of 25 and 32. They will be handed over to the Police Narcotic Bureau for onward legal action. Including the latest seizure, the Sri Lanka Navy has held drugs with a gross street value of over 4,908 million rupees during operations mounted in 2023.
Explosions rocked the Sudanese capital Khartoum on Monday as fighting between the Sudanese army and paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces, also known as the RSF, raged for a third day. Nearly 100 civilians have been confirmed to have been killed as fighting rages in the city of 6 million people.
Fierce clashes have been reported across Sudan as fighting between rival armed factions continues to spread. Hand-to-hand fighting continued across the capital city and in several other towns across the country. Violence between the army and a paramilitary group called the Rapid Support Forces or the RSF continued into its third day. Both sides claimed to control key sites in the capital Khartoum, where residents sheltered from explosions. Sudanese Air Force jets bombed RSF positions in the city. Fighting has closed down Khartoum International Airport, where a Saudi Airlines A330 aircraft packed with passengers was hit by gunfire on Saturday as it prepared to take off. The passengers were unhurt. The two sides are led by the country's two most powerful generals, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who heads the military and is the head of the Transitional Sovereignty Council, and General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, who leads the RSF and is the deputy head of the Transitional Sovereignty Council. The military leaders formed the Transitional Sovereignty Council after overthrowing the democratic government in 2021, which had grown unpopular due to rising food prices. The 110,000-strong army is fighting the RSF, whose numbers are estimated to be between 50,000 and 100,000. The RSF grew out of a ruthless band of militia known as the Janjaweed, who were created by the government to wipe out rebels in the western Darfur region in the 1990s. The brutal Janjaweed have been accused of committing acts of genocide against civilians by international organizations. Its successor, the RSF, is involved in the current war in Yemen, where it is said to have 40,000 fighters on the side of the Saudi coalition. Once part of the British Empire, Sudan gained independence in 1956, but civil wars and military coups have been a constant theme since then. The country, which has a population of 47 million, is rich in gold mines and is Africa's third largest exporter of gold. Foreign powers have often influenced its history, and the present Transitional Sovereignty Council has strong ties with Saudi Arabia. China is one of Sudan's most active trading partners and has invested strategically in Sudanese companies. Sudan is known as one of the world's most corrupt countries. In 2018, massive protests began after a government decision to triple the price of goods at a time when the country was suffering an acute shortage of foreign currency and inflation of 70% under the regime of President al-Bashir, who had been in power for more than 30 years. A coalition of parties then formed a government. But in 2021, a military coup took place, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who subsequently declared a state of emergency. He has promised to return the country to civilian rule gradually, which has not happened yet. A major issue has been the RSF's demand that it be integrated into the military, which the army is resisting, and finally sparked the latest violence.
Taliban's Ministry of Mines and Petroleum said a Chinese company known as Gochin expressed its interest in investing $10 billion in Afghanistan's lithium deposits.
The Taliban arguably perceive Beijing as a potential source of economic investment following the US withdrawal. The acting Minister for Mine and Petroleum met with the Chinese company representatives in Kabul and said that the investment would create 120,000 direct and 1 million indirect jobs in the country. According to the Minister of Mines and Petroleum statement, the Chinese company also offered to repair the Salang Pass within 7 months and carve another tunnel. Cochin stressed that the process of the lithium deposits will get done inside the country, and to process it, a hydroelectric dam will be built and Kuma and Langam Road will be asphalted. Since the Taliban takeover of the country, China has increased its influence via economic ties with the current regime. According to several media reports, Chinese companies have long aspired to access Afghanistan's extensive and rich lithium deposits, estimated to be worth more than $1 trillion. The Taliban-run Afghanistan saw its first significant foreign investment in January 2023 when a Chinese firm signed a 25-year-long multi-million-dollar contract to extract oil.
Today was day 2 of the first test between Sri Lanka and Ireland, played at the Galle International Cricket Stadium. At stumps on day 2, Ireland were on 117 for 7 wickets in their first innings.
Play resumed on day 2 earlier today with Sri Lanka on an overnight score of 386 for 4 in their first innings. Night watcher Prabhat Jayasuriya was dismissed for 16 runs as the first wicket of the day. Dalanjay De Silva was trapped in front for 12 runs. Dinesh Chandimal and Sadira Samaravikrama took to the field thereafter to put on an unbeaten 183 runs together. This performance went into the history books as the best 7th wicket stand in Galle. Dinesh Chandimal went on to achieve his 14th test century, while wicketkeeper batsman Sadira Samaravikrama progressed to his maiden test century. It was the first time a Sri Lankan wicketkeeper has made a century in test match cricket in 7 years, the previous being Kusal Perera in 2016. After a dominant session, the hosts declared on 591 for 6. Vishwa Fernando did the initial damage with the ball, finding a hint of movement to knock back Murray Commins's off stump with his first delivery, and the left-arm seamer had 2 for the over when Ireland captain Andy Balbirnie was dismissed. Ireland rebuilt from a humble position of 4 for 2 with James McCollum and Harry Tector putting on 70, but they were left in a heap thereafter, troubled by Prabhat Jayasuriya's dip and drift on a turning pitch. Jayasuriya claimed a 5 for the 5th 5-wicket haul in his test career, leaving the tourists on 117 for 7 at the end of day 2.
And that's a wrap of primetime news for tonight. For the News First team, I'm Jayama Ratnayaka. Do remember to take care, stay safe, and good night.